First of all, Craig, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
My first question for you today is, how did you get into the announcing and sports journalism business?
Well, when I was young, I'm sure like yourself, I had a passion for sports, and I couldn't keep my mouth shut, so I talked all the time, and so that was a good 1-2 punch right there. But I had a principal in 6th grade who gave me a recorder once, and he said, take this and go out, and when you're not playing in a baseball or softball game, when it's not your turn to be up, take this stuff and go behind the backstop and broadcast whatever part of the game it is. And he goes, if you do that, bring that tape in the next day and I'll play it on the PA system at school before school starts. So quite honestly, that was kind of like a first beginning for me. It's been kind of in my blood since I was young. And then when I got into college, you have to pick the right school to go to. And I picked UW-Whitewater. They had some really good opportunities to get in kind of on the ground floor of a lot of things that you could do as an underclassman. And then from there, I just started getting into broadcasting, producing, got to the radio station, tried to get a shift or two to do some things with them as well. And then on the journalism side, started writing some articles as well for our school paper. So I just try to, get into as much as I could when I could.
All right. Who was someone growing up that you idolized that might have influenced you into becoming an announcer?
Well, when I was young, there were a couple of people that were big-time broadcasters locally for the Brewers. It was Bob Uecker,
Yeah.
and now we get to do a lot of games, kind of side by side, and I get to see him quite a bit, over the last 20 years, which is pretty special for me. Another guy's got a throwback name for the Bucks, Eddie Doucette. He was very colorful in his descriptions on how he broadcasted Bucks games, and I thought, that just catches your attention right away. So Bob was the storyteller, and Eddie was the colorful, descriptive way of broadcasting games. And then when I got a little bit older, guys like Jim Paschke, who worked in sports news and local affiliates, and then got into just being a team broadcaster, was somebody that I looked up to too, and I get to work with Jim still to this day. So those type of guys locally had a nice influence on me for sure.
All right, yeah. So my next question is, how would you manage to stay energized and focused covering both the Brewers and Bucks nearly year-round?
Well, part of that is their success.
Yeah.
We've had some lean years with both
Yes,
teams,
of course.
but I will say this, we're covering a game, and there's no two games that are the same. There just have never been. There's no two seasons that are the same. And so, to me, that just keeps inspiring what's going to happen next, because that question will only be answered when you get on the next broadcast and cover the next game. And then that game's over, and it's just something to talk about, but it's not something that you're preparing next to do. You're preparing for the next game. So just knowing that there's a big audience of people out there that that are watching your broadcasts and are watching a team for entertainment, and it's a pretty cool thing to be a part of every day. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves of that, but for the most part, I just think the whole spirit of the actual game itself is what's the coolest thing to be a part of in a live broadcast.
That kind of leads me to another question. Do you ever catch yourself being a fan of the teams while you're kind of like doing the broadcast?
Yeah, for sure. The thing about it is if the Cardinals and Brewers are playing, we're not there to cover the Cardinals and appease their fans or their team. We're not going to be critical of them, don't get me wrong. I try to be down the line, be a neutral type of broadcaster, but we're also we're also there for the team. We're like an arm of the team, because we hold their broadcast rights exclusively for the Bucks and the Brewers. So, I'm not gonna cry if the team
Yeah.
doesn't do well, and I'm not gonna try to cheer too loud, but you have to be enthusiastic.
Yes.
You have to be happy. You have to have a connection that puts the team to our broadcast viewers. You're kind of the conduit, and we do enjoy that very much. And you know, if there are big moments, you know, it's going to sound like we're homers sometimes, but and that's okay. I just think, you know, when it comes down to being, you know, critical or stuff, you know, then you know, there's a line to watch right there. That's for sure.
The past 2 years have seen MVP wins by our very own Christian Yelich of the Brewers back in 2018 and Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Bucks in 2019. What might stand out as the greatest season by an individual player that you've seen on a team that you've covered?
Well, you mean aside from their MVP years?
So,
Boy,
well,
yeah.
you can, yeah.
Well, they're, it's hard not to look at those MVP seasons, that's for sure, because that is, you know, with a guy like Christian Yelich, he also became the first Brewer in history to win a batting title.
Yeah.
And so, not only did he do that, but the league recognized him by being the best player. And I also know him pretty well, and his demeanor is just so good and so locked in and so grounded that, you know, you become even happier for a guy like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side, then you look at a guy like Giannis, and he's also grounded in a lot of ways. But in the NBA, it's so much more individual than it is in baseball. To have a guy for 6 or 7 months be that one person who stands out among all others in a league where, you know, they try to focus in on 1 or 2 guys, and that's it. To be above LeBron and all that is some pretty big stuff. So it's hard to look outside of those 2 MVPs
Yeah, exactly.
and say anybody could have done any better than the teams I've covered. That's for sure. Those guys right there, pretty special.
Yeah, I'd agree.
You got time for like 1 or 2 more?
I have one more.
Yeah,
So.
7:45.
So my last question would be, what advice would you give someone who's aspiring to become an announcer or a sports journalist?
Get involved. Get involved in whatever program you're in as much as you possibly can. Don't just go to school to take the courses. Spend extra time trying to do projects. If there's games that your team is broadcasting, be part of that if you can, and be willing to put in a lot of extra of your own time. It's not even effort to me. It's just be willing to use your time to make yourself that much better and to craft what you really want to do in life. And I think if you do that, you're going to be in, you know, you're going to be in pretty good shape. I mean, it's kind of the basis of what this business is. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not Monday through Friday. But if you understand that, you know, young, which is hard to do sometimes, but by understanding it is just to be involved in as much as you can, whether it's writing, broadcasting, whatever the case may be, as far as putting any of that stuff together.
All right, thank you, Craig. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem.